Hey everyone, my name is Sara Harberson. I am America's college counselor. We are having some Wi-Fi issues, so I just want to make sure that all of you can see and hear me. I think we are finally showing up, and I really appreciate your patience. It's always interesting with technology. There you guys are, awesome. So as I was mentioning in the video that did not pop up and did not go live, I always want to welcome all of those students, parents, college counselors, mentors who have college admissions questions, because this is your time to ask those questions, and I'm always happy to answer as many as I can during these monthly Facebook Lives. We are streaming live, yes we are, on both of my Facebook pages for Sara Harberson and Admissions Revolution. We save all of the Facebook Lives, so you can check them out on my feed, or also check out saraharberson.com or admissionsrevolution.com. I have a ton of free resources for all of you. I typically write a blog a week. I also have free guides. You just need to provide your email address and you can download it. And Facebook Lives every single month, Instagram Lives a lot as well. So lots of options for you to get your questions answered. But I love doing these Facebook Lives. It reminds me of where I got my start. So why don't we get started with those questions? All right, first one. Can you write a blog post on why high schools should not include, oh my gosh, I'm with you, should not include median GPAs and other clues to help AOs rank students, something we can forward to our college counseling office? This is a great idea. So what this parent is asking about or suggesting is that there are a lot of high schools across the country. This is such a great question. There are a lot of high schools across the country that have eliminated class rank because they know that admissions officers look at that class rank and make a snap decision and never really fully give that student a chance based on that student's class rank. In some cases, a student could be well into, the second or third decile in terms of a class rank, or top 20 or 30%, and still have a straight A average. So some high schools feel the need, they don't need to do this, but they feel like they should provide other information on their school profile. So a lot of times they will include GPA ranges based on deciles, like the top 10% has a GPA between a 4.0 and a 3.8. By doing that, admissions officers can figure out where the student falls within the class, at least give them a sense. And it's not even accurate because it's just a general sense. So I am a big fan of high schools not providing that information on their profile. It is absolutely not required, and colleges and admissions officers have been living without it for a lot of high schools that they work with every single year. So great suggestion, and I think that might be my next blog that you can then pass on to your college counseling office and at least give them proof that it's not necessary to provide all that information. All right, next question. Is there an awards section of the Common App? There was when I applied and it stressed me out. I didn't win anything except most improved. You guys are cracking me up tonight. All right, there is an honors section. It's called Honors, and it's in Common App. And obviously for any other application that you'd fill out, they usually have an honors section. If you're using Common App, and that is the most common application that students fill out and is the most received by the most colleges as well, there's only space for 5 honors on your honors section. But I'm going to be honest, lots of students that I work with through Application Nation don't even have one. So I don't want you to be too concerned about that. What I will say is, if you read the language on Common App in that section, it's supposed to be for academic honors, but there are some students who simply don't have any academic honors. And so sometimes some of the extracurricular honors can end up on that list, and that's probably okay. I would say don't overlook some academic honors that you probably do have, like being, getting on honor roll or being part of National Honor Society. These are all academic honors a lot of times that you can list in that section. So don't get too stressed out, and most students don't have big awards, but make sure at least for your activities list, your activities section, that you're saying something really special about how you've been spending your free time. To me, that's going to be the most important. I just did an AN call, Application Nation call tonight on extracurricular activities, and I showed them how you can tell this really powerful story about who you are through your activities list. All right, next question. My daughter is a junior and she is taking a science class over the summer, dual enrollment through a community college to make sure she has at least 4 years of all 5 core subjects. You are listening and reading everything I say. In her senior year, would it look back to have a free period? Her schedule right now has 3 APs, 2 honors, and choir. She could add another English elective course. All right, here's the cool thing. If you follow my 5-4 plan, and maybe we could post that blog if that's possible, you just need to take your 5 core classes for all 4 years of high school. If you do that, you are satisfying all of the desires for all those colleges and universities that you are applying to. If you have room in your schedule to take other classes, other electives, or you want to take a study hall, that's fine to do as long as you've taken or have on your schedule your 5 core classes, okay? Admissions officers will never know that you've taken a study hall, actually. Because you're not getting credit, you're not getting a grade for study hall, they would never even know. And even if they knew, they'd be fine with it as long as you're taking your 5 core classes. All right, next question. My son is doing Spanish 3 in 9th grade. Is that good enough for college admissions? Well, ask these colleges and see what they say. That would probably not meet a lot of the minimum requirements because even though he's advanced in Spanish, most colleges want to see the student taking advantage of those advanced level classes. So just because he took Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 as a middle school student doesn't mean he's okay with just taking Spanish 3. Most colleges will want to see as much foreign language as a student can take, and ideally they're doing it for all 4 years of high school. Obviously, if their high school doesn't offer, AP Spanish language or AP Spanish literature or another equally advanced or rigorous class, the student wouldn't be expected to take them, but you want to try to take advantage of what's being offered at your high school. So I would recommend taking Spanish 4 sophomore year, and if Spanish 5 is offered junior year, I would definitely try to take it through junior year. You never want to just meet the minimum requirements for college admissions. You always want to go beyond that. The minimum requirements are really just kind of basic level things. Most colleges are looking for much more than that. Next question, does membership in National Honor Society and subject-specific honor society participation matter? I would say that it's not necessary, even for highly selective colleges, it's not necessary for a student to be in National Honor Society or other specific subject matter honor societies, but I think it's fairly common. It's a nice way to kind of gather some honors and accolades. So it's usually not as big of a time commitment as some of the other extracurricular activities, and so that's why some students will often put them on the honor section. So it's not required in any way, but I think a lot of students will do them. Next question. Is it okay to list tennis 9th grade varsity as an extracurricular? Absolutely. So sports are one of many extracurricular activities a student can do. But again, you don't need sports. You don't need National Honor Society. You actually don't need a job or community service. These are just options that students can pursue. I would say most students have community service on their list. Most students will have some work experience, but not all. But tennis is going to be a sport if it's offered through your high school. You would be selecting the activity type would be JV/varsity. But the longer you stay with tennis or any activity, the more impact it's going to have. Next question. What are your thoughts on high school transcripts, including ACT scores, or leaving that option for submission to students either by separate submitted file or through official ACT reports? This is another one. Gosh, I should write a blog about this, because not only do some high schools put a lot of extra information about where the student falls within their class based on GPA or class rank, but there are a lot of high schools across the country that will actually put the students' test scores right on the transcript. And for a student that is applying to test optional colleges, that is really going to hurt them, because a lot of times they don't even know that their test scores are showing up on the transcript. So I feel very strongly that high schools should not be listing ACT, SAT, AP scores on the transcript. That's information that the student can provide on their own. They can provide it as self-reported information on their application or send official scores through the College Board or the ACT. It's really important that high schools let students present that information and be able to pick and choose what they share with colleges. Next question. My daughter's high school can't work out her schedule for senior year due to her engineering internship. They can't fit in English and AP economics. Oh my. The options they are now looking at is online AP English or AP Econ. Thoughts on an online class. AP Econ is supposed to be her 4th year of history. If the online class is not a good option, would dropping AP Econ be okay? All right, so you want to try your best to prioritize those 5 core classes: English, math, history, foreign language, and science. But sometimes there are going to be scheduling conflicts. What I will say is English is a must. You absolutely need to prioritize that, even if you're interested in applying as an engineering applicant. And so taking AP language or AP literature, whichever AP she's thinking about, is my top priority. If she's not able to take it at her high school, it is a manageable AP class to take online, whereas taking AP Calculus BC or AP Physics C, really difficult classes to take online. So I would recommend prioritizing that. AP Econ would be great. It will count as a history or a social science, but if she's applying as an engineering applicant, it's not a make or break that she has a history or social science senior year, especially if there's a scheduling conflict. No matter what happens, though, I would want her college counselor to explain the scheduling conflicts that she has, and that way admissions officers won't be looking for that history class or that AP Econ class. They will understand that there was a scheduling conflict. Great questions tonight. All right, next one. My daughter takes Spanish 5 in her junior year, and next year the only offering is Spanish 6, but it says lecture in the title and she has no interest in taking it. Will it look bad not taking another year of a language? It's probably not a big deal if she doesn't take Spanish 6 for senior year. However, if she's dropping Spanish for senior year, I want her to fill that slot with another core class, and that's hard to do. But I'd want her to add a second math class, a second English class, a second science class, or a second history class, because you absolutely want to have 5 core classes even through senior year. Next question, how important are senior year AP test scores? I know second semester grades are important, but how important is it to study for exams at the school you've been accepted to don't offer credit exemption? Would poor scores be cause for rescinding an offer? Let's answer that first question first. No, you would not get your offer of admission rescinded because you got a low score on an AP exam. My recommendation is, when you're filling, and especially for those juniors listening in, when you're filling out your self-reported testing section on your application, there's going to be questions about what AP exams you plan to take. If you're not sure, or you don't know if you're going to have senioritis at the end of senior year, just leave that blank. Because if you have listed that you're planning to take these AP exams and then you decide not to take them, some colleges actually want to know. But if you get a low score on an AP exam for senior year, it is not going to hurt your acceptance to that college. For some colleges, it could give you advanced standing, it could give you credit, but senior year, it's not going to have any impact on your admissions offer. If you take AP exams freshman, sophomore, or junior year, you would have those scores available to you and you would have them to be able to share in the self-reported testing section of your application. But AP scores are technically not required for college admission, so I always say only present scores that are going to put you in the best light. All right, next question. How will colleges deal with students who aren't able to take the SAT or ACT because the scheduled tests keep getting canceled? So this is a regional issue because depending on where you live, you could have SAT and ACTs easily available to you to be able to take, but you could be living in a part of the country where that is not the option and is not a possibility. The good news is most of the colleges have already made announcements. I would say the majority of colleges that were test optional this year have already announced that they're going to be test optional for next year. I'm noticing that the public or state universities in the South have not announced whether or not they're going to be extending that test optional policy. So I think you just have to kind of wait and see what happens this summer. I don't want students having to travel, get on a plane, travel across the country just to be able to take an SAT or ACT. The good news is I think most colleges will extend that test optional policy even for the class of 2022. Next question. For a senior who has exhausted history offerings as a junior and isn't interested in econ, honors psychology, honors art history, or honors ethics. So technically these all probably fit into that social science category. I would probably choose honors psychology or honors art history maybe before honors ethics, but all three are honors level classes, and so a lot of colleges will see them as a core, but probably psychology or art history are more traditional social sciences that students can take. Any more questions? Here we go. My son's school will not be offering AP Physics C next year, and it is the only AP Physics course. Whoops, we lost. Oh, there we go. And it is the only AP Physics course that the school offers. So he has run out of AP Science classes. He's already taken AP Bio and AP Chem. There are no other AP Science classes offered. He wants to take the 5 core classes. Would AP Statistics be okay since this is his only option? Okay, here's the thing. This physics in general is one of those staple classes, even for, dare I say, non-engineering majors. So I would say, especially if you're looking at highly selected colleges, they expect to see a year of biology, a year of chemistry, a year of physics, and usually a 4th year of science to be the most competitive. But if your high school doesn't offer it, you are not expected to have that on your transcript or have that on your record. But here's the thing. You want to double check the high school profile. The high school profile gets sent along with your high school transcript. It's supposed to be updated every single year so that it accurately provides college admissions officers a sense of the grading system, ranking if it's available, the community, but also course offerings. And so if AP Physics C used to be offered, but it's no longer being offered, but it's listed on the profile, those admissions officers would assume that you had an opportunity to take it and you didn't. So make sure that the profile is updated. I would also recommend that the college counselor mention in the letter of recommendation that the only physics class was canceled, and that is why the student is taking AP Statistics. So AP Statistics is a core class. I don't recommend that it should be used to take the place of AP Calculus or pre-calculus, but if that is your only option, it will absolutely count as a core. All right, next question. Are summer visits to colleges a good way to show demonstrated interest, or is it better to visit during the school year? If a college uses demonstrated interest, and I'll explain that in a moment, you can visit it at any time, but you just want to make sure that there's a record that you actually visit it. So if the admissions office is open, you usually are signing in, registering so they know that you were on campus. If the admissions office is closed or they're not offering official tours, check out the box, which is usually placed right outside the doors of the admissions office. You usually will find forms to fill out and pens and pencils, and you can fill that out, leave it in the box, and they will collect it the next day that they're in the office so that you can show that you were actually there. Demonstrated interest is a strategy that not all colleges use, but a lot of them use. It is a way for them to predict yield. Yield is the percentage of students who accept the offer of admission. Some colleges are very concerned with keeping their acceptance rate down as much as possible. They don't want to admit a lot of students who aren't going to actually enroll. So they will factor in demonstrated interest into the admissions process as part of the evaluation. And so you want to make sure that if a college uses demonstrated interest, that at the very least you have done an in-person visit or a virtual visit. But there are other ways to show demonstrated interest. Your high school could be offering a presentation from that college, and you can sign up and attend. You can open up the emails that these colleges are sending. You can attend an open house. You can attend a virtual event. These are all ways to show demonstrated interest. Next question. Hey, Gladys. Is one AP Science enough for a non-science major? Probably, because if you think about it, ideally the student's taking maybe honors biology in 9th grade, honors chemistry in 10th grade usually, honors physics in junior year, and then the AP Science could be taken senior year or vice versa. Okay. All right. Hi, Sarah. Do transcripts and essays submitted for college summer program get recorded and referred to during college admissions process? Yes, they do. All right, so here's the thing. I just mentioned this to my Application Nation group. If you take let's say a college class this summer, it's great, right? You know, it gives you something to do, especially it's tough to find jobs. It's tough to find something to do in a pandemic. Just keep in mind, it doesn't go on your activities list. It actually, the class and the grade don't actually appear on your application if you're using Common App, for example. What happens is you go to the education section where you're listing the high school that you attend or high schools that you attend. You would also be listing that college or university that you took a summer class at. But there's no room to list that class or that grade. If you want the colleges to see that class and that grade because you did really well in it, it backs up the major that you're listing on your application, you would have to send an official transcript from that college or university and have it directly sent to the colleges on your list. And if it is sent and it is a part of your application, it can factor into the admissions process, even though it's not required. So just remember, anything extra that you send along becomes a part of your official application file. So you want to make sure that anything extra is really, really strong. So if it's available, yes, admissions officers will look at it. You know, oftentimes the student is taking an advanced level class in a subject matter that they want to major in. Let's say they're taking a 200 or a 300 level class at a local college or university, and that matches up. That's the same subject matter that they want to study in college, and they get an A in that class. It shows a lot of great evidence to support that major. All right, next question. If the school is offering the SAT to all juniors and students choose not to take it, will it hurt them? Or is this fine because so many schools are test optional? You do not have to take it as long as it's not a requirement for high school graduation or for your high school. You don't have to take it at your high school during the day. You could take it on your own time, or you could decide that you're not going to be taking the SAT or ACT. There are some students now who are making that decision. One thing I will mention though, we do have a growing number of colleges that have adopted a test optional policy either temporarily because of the pandemic or even permanently. Just look very carefully at those colleges' test optional policies, because there are some colleges, believe it or not, that don't require the SAT or ACT for their application. So a student could get admitted without those scores, but some of them do require at least one SAT or ACT for enrollment purposes. They're probably using it to track how well test optional students do once they get to their college, but in some cases you still have to provide a score. So it's not a bad idea to take the SAT or ACT at least once. All right, next question. What majors should a student take who is interested in medical school? If in junior year student decides not to pursue medicine, which major will help them find a new career? Okay, the cool thing is, well, I'm married to a doctor, right? Sitting right next to me. He's helping me tonight and he's on call, so I really appreciate that. And if you hear a buzzing, it's his pager. So he'll be heading to the hospital soon. Here's the thing. That guy sitting next to me was a classical languages major. He studied Latin and Greek in college. He's a doctor now. So it's just, that story is important to mention to all those students who think that they want to be doctors. You don't have to be a science major. You know, I always tell students, don't follow what everybody else is doing. Just follow your heart. And if you do that, you're going to make a difference. And you're going to stand out too. And so you could be a classical languages major, you could be a theater major, you could be an English major. As long as you're taking your pre-med, prerequisite classes every single year, biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, and physics, in college, and you've got some medical experience to back up your medical school applications, you might actually stand out a little bit more. Here's the thing though, there are going to be a lot of students that want to major in the sciences, and that's okay. So biology, chemistry, those tend to be popular majors for students who want to go to medical school, but the sky's the limit. Same thing for law school or getting your MBA after college. You can major in anything you want as long as you're taking those important classes that are required, those prerequisite classes. All right, next question. What suggestions do you have for students, particularly seniors, as they prepare for a 2021-2022 school year that will most definitely be vastly different and hopefully more normal from our current school year? What I would say is it's starting to feel a little bit more normal, right? And things aren't back to normal, but it is my hope that those students will be able to engage fully in their extracurricular activities that they did before the pandemic. They might even be able to have a normal summer job, or a normal summer experience that can be reportable. That's the thing I always tell my rising high school seniors. As you think about the summer before senior year, ideally you want to do something that is reportable, that you can share on your activities list. So I would be thinking about summer plans, something that you can include on your activities list. I would definitely be excited, looking forward to getting back into the school environment in a more realistic, regular, normal way. There are still some students that are completely virtual or doing a hybrid, so make sure you engage. The other thing that I'm finding with our current juniors, that class of 2022 that's finishing up the school year, they're having trouble picking out teachers that have gotten to know them this year. And so if you're in that situation and you don't have any junior year teachers that know you really well to write you a letter of recommendation, you just want to start off the senior year really strong and connecting with some teachers that maybe you had sophomore year, or possibly a senior year teacher that could write you a letter of recommendation. So make sure you get in that connection, build that relationship, have those conversations with those teachers outside of class, because they can definitely enhance your letters of recommendation. All right, let's take another question or two here. Does a capstone project have any weight in the admissions process for a science major? So I assume you're asking about the AP Capstone program. It's a 2-year program. The student does a project very similar to the extended essay for the International Baccalaureate Diploma. Does the topic of the project matter in admissions? And I would say it depends if it comes through in your application. I often teach my Application Nation families this strategy called layering. So I always tell them, if you have things to share, you don't have to repeat them in different parts of your application, but you want to be smart about where it's mentioned and who it's mentioned. So for example, if you have this really cool capstone project and it matches up directly with the major that you're listing on your applications, you want to make sure it comes through in the application. There are a couple places you could put it. If that teacher that you have for AP Seminar or AP Research is your advisor for that project, and they're writing your letter of recommendation, they can actually mention that in their letter. So make sure you remind them of that. If that's not the case and none of your teachers know about it, or your letter writer doesn't know about your AP Capstone project, or doesn't overlap with that subject matter, your college counselor could mention that in the letter of recommendation. So make sure you make that clear if you want them to mention that. Again, it doesn't have to be mentioned by every single person writing a letter. Pick one person. And if your college counselor isn't willing to do that, you can work it in somewhere. You can even add one extra sentence in the additional information section of your application that states what your project is all about in a short, powerful, concise way. All right, one more question. Hi, Sarah. Do colleges see community college and state university concurrent classes differently? All right, I never know. So community college classes are a great option. They're cheap. and they are highly respected. You know, you would think that admissions officers want to see students taking college classes at fancy colleges, but those are super, super expensive. So they like when students take advantage of community college classes. If they've exhausted the curriculum at their high school, or there's a scheduling conflict, that's a great way to fit it in. The concurrent university classes, I assume you mean like dual enrollment classes, I'm thinking, Gladys. I would say dual enrollment can be a great option, especially if you're staying in state and you're hoping to get credit for those classes to graduate from high school and possibly put towards your college degree. But if you're applying to highly selected colleges, I would be a little bit more careful with those dual enrollment classes if they are the same as concurrent. If not, let me know, Gladys. I know where you are, and I can definitely answer that question a little bit better. One more question, my husband says. He's being very kind. All right, our school, middle, college, high school, does not offer APs, only DE. To get a good ranking, kids are forced to take many DE classes not related to the major. What do you think a good strategy is in this situation? Well, good question. I actually worked at a high school that didn't offer APs, so admissions officers weren't expecting to see students have AP classes or even take AP exams. It was clearly stated on the school profile. That's because I wrote that school profile and made sure of it. But if AP classes are not offered, they're not going to expect a student to take them. I would say DE, if the DE classes, dual enrollment classes, are the most advanced level classes offered at your high school, that's what you want to take. And yes, there are a lot of students that are strategizing, and they're taking as many of these classes as they can get to get their class ranking up. I would say, you know, those students are going to do what they want to do. Just make sure that the curriculum and the schedule that you put together is the right one for you. And on that note, it's always good to see you guys. And I really appreciate all the great questions. Thanks for being so patient, especially at the beginning when we tried our first Facebook Live at 9:30 and it wasn't streaming. So I appreciate your patience and your understanding and sticking with me. Always good to have you here, and I look forward to seeing you back here again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.